interview with the owner of Walnut Grove Plantation.
Did you inherit this house through your family?
Yes, I did, through my husband's family. It's never been owned by anybody else, only this family.
Around how old is this house?
This house was built in 1837. Now, Gray, you'll have to figure out how many years that's been, but it's been a long time.
It has. What was the landscape that surrounded this house like?
The Indians lived in this area before the house was built. So all I know, it was a lot of Indian territory and a lot of open ground. And one of the reasons they chose this site was because of the walnut trees here. And that's why it's called Walnut Grove Plantation.
How big is this house compared to other houses of its day, like Barnsley Gardens?
I would think they're all built about the same. Some of them may have been a little bit bigger, some of them smaller. But most of them had the wide halls and the 4 rooms downstairs and the 4 rooms upstairs. They did not have any bathrooms in the house. They didn't have lights and heat and air. They had coal burning fireplaces, and they had to use coal or wood to heat the house.
What was the social status of the house's inhabitants in the county?
Well, he was a doctor. He came down here from South Carolina with his wife and children.
What was his name?
His name was Robert Young, Dr. Robert Young. And that's a picture you're seeing right now of Dr. Robert Young.
Okay. And this is
his wife, Caroline.
That's his wife. So were they unknown, or did people know them, who they were throughout time?
I don't think they knew them when they first came down here, because back in that day there were a lot of settlers coming in, and I don't think they knew each other. There were a lot of Indians here in this area, so they knew some of the Indians before the Trail of Tears, before the Indians were taken away.
Okay. Did you say the inhabitants of this house were wealthy?
I don't think they were very wealthy. They were okay. But when the war broke out, they were very, very, very poor. The war caused them to almost lose a lot of things, but they were very fortunate to be able to keep the house. And this house was used by General Sherman's army as a hospital during the Civil War.
How might the house and its inhabitants suffer during the Civil War?
It did not. This family was very lucky that they did not have a lot of damage during the war. There were a few houses in Bartow County that were not damaged, and this was one that survived.
Was this because it was a hospital?
I think that's probably the reason, Greg. That's what I would think. I do not know that for sure, but I think that's the reason. And when they left, I guess they left in a hurry and left the house fine.
Did this house have slaves or servants?
Yes, they did. They had slaves, but now I don't know how many they had.
How many would you say they had as an estimate?
I would say maybe 10 or 12.
Did they have any, maybe not slaves, but servants?
I would imagine back then they were all slaves, but the families helped each other. Their children had to help on the plantation, and I'm sure they had an overseer that made sure that everything that was not a slave, and he had to make sure that everything was done right.
Is this house more of a southern plantation house or a country plantation house?
I would think a southern plantation house.
Why would you think that?
Just my thoughts. I don't. You could name it either way, really, Gray. But I think of it as being very southern.
Is it because of some of the furniture, or the inhabitants' way of life?
I think it may be the way of life of the inhabitants. They were farmers.
Ever have delusions of grandeur of this house in its prime days, like you're living in it as a living history museum?
I don't, but I've got stories that I've been told how they used to drive up in their carriages and walk up the boxwood driveway out front and come up to the front door. And you may later want to walk around the front and get a picture of the boxwoods and the drive coming up to the front of the house.
enjoy living in a historic home?
I love living here. I'm very happy here. And I'm gonna continue to stay here as long as I can. And then when I can't have it anymore, my son will come take care of it. But we wanna keep it in the family.
Does it feel like a living history museum to you?
No, I don't let it do that. I just enjoy it. I try to keep parts of it living history, but most of the time I keep it so that I'm comfortable in
So
it.
like it's family history, not
Right.
really like
It's
world.
family, yes, Gray, that's exactly right. It's family history.
It's not anyone else's family history.
No, this is strictly this house family history.